make a quick clip today of how to put a 2jzgte engine into a Soarer. So I'll walk you around my Toyota Soarer, or Sc400 as it's known, and just show you how it's done, the mounts, standard, that sort of thing, and wiring. Mainly there's little tricky bits with the wiring that it's really hard to work out, so I'll show you how to do that and how to get all the gauges working. The tacho, you have to change the dash for a tacho, etc., with the digital dash. So all that sort of stuff we'll go over today, and I'll show you a little bit about the Soarer itself as well. All the stuff though is going to be completely relevant to a JZA80 Supra. Sort of relevant to the American cars as well, but you have to extend your loom a little bit. Now we'll just get past this bus. This Supra has got the same setup as the Soarer. So it's got a 2jzgte engine in it, swapped over from a GE, and I've got a Tremec TR6060 in this one. So it's the remote shift, it's exactly the same outside design as the T56 and the Soarer, but this has beefier internals, exactly like the Magnum's internals. It's just a later model gearbox. So this one's a TR6060, the Soarer has a T56, but overall exactly the same. Even the front drive shaft is exactly the same between the Supra and the Soarer. These are both running direct clutch, and they can handle a bit of grunt, but this one is hell noisy compared to the Soarer. I'm really not quite sure why. The alignment is perfect, everything is perfect. This one here, we had to run slightly thinner clutch plates on those, so it's a slightly more compact clutch, but it's the exact same clutch. Just turns out that this one is a heck of a lot louder. I will probably change it in the future. It's my daily driven car, this one, the Supra. This one shifts a bit better though. It has quite smooth shifts and you can get it between gears faster. I think the 6060 has thicker synchros on it than the 56 as well. And particularly between first and second, you can get a much faster launch with this one. You can really slip it quick between first and second. At the moment the Soarer has got the stock twin turbos on it. It's running 17 psi though at the moment. This one here is only running the stock 11, maybe 12 psi. I don't even have a boost controller on this one. This is running the standard ECU, even though this one has a big single turbo on it, so it should be faster. I'll get this one tuned in the future and we'll do a clip of this one on the dyno. Nearly a BOC, so we're going to spin around the corner here and pick up a straight argon bottle so we can do some TIG welding. So this is how you put a gas bottle into the back of a Supra. Yep, probably not the safest way to do things, but it does work. I carry everything in this. We're going to pick up some steel after this and I lay it straight down through the back seats there. The wheels on this car are hideous. Can't stand them, but it's my daily driver. They have to do for now. This car needs a lot of work, but it's going to get some attention pretty soon. Okay, here we go. Here's the Soarer. So, 2jzgte into a Toyota Soarer, Sc300, Sc400. This was an Sc400 or V8 Soarer Limited. Had the 4 litre 1UZFE V8 in it. I twin turboed that. I did a lot of work to that. Had forged internals in it. I had it in running for a while, but it kept blowing the auto boxes. Meantime, I bought two 2jzgtes that I got very cheap a while ago, and now of course they're worth a lot of money. And I pulled out the 1UZFE twin turbo, which is sitting right beside me. I'll show you here in a minute, because I had coolant leaking through. So after I built it, I stupidly didn't plane the top of the blocks of the block over the pistons. I did plane the heads, but I didn't do the block. And when I put the multi-layered steel head gaskets in, it leaked coolant when I started it. So I pulled that engine out. Now I have a 2jzgte into here. I simply had a 2jzgte out of an Arista sitting on the ground doing nothing for so long. So I had the Soarer sitting here doing nothing as well, so I thought, well, I might as well put a 2jzgte in it until I rebuild the twin turbo 1UZ. So here it is behind me. So what did I do? I used the engine mounts out of a 1jz GTE Soarer. Simple, standard stock mounts, straight off Toyota. Put those in. You can't use the V8 mounts. The V8 mounts go on a slight diagonal in, and they won't fit the engine. Stock 1jz GTE engine mounts, bang them straight onto the 2jz GTE engine, and then you lower it straight in. That's that bit done. Gearbox I'll go into a little bit later. Yes, this has a T56 Tremec conversion done on it, with an adapter plate using the A340 auto bell housing, but we'll go over that later on. I used a 1jz GTE engine loom on this as well, so that was completely stock. You fit that onto the engine before you drop it in. You can do it afterwards, but it's easier to do it before you put the 2jz in. You do a few little alterations. Fitting the wiring loom under the intake manifold is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit tight. I had to take it out of its wrapping and just rerun it and then wrap it up again myself. The other big change using the 1jz GTE loom is that I didn't want to run the stock 1J computer, the ECU. I wanted to use the 2jz ECU. So I bought an adapter harness for that from Tweaked in America. It works very well. I'll show you that patch harness soon. But that means also that I would be running sequential injection. A 1jz GTE runs batch fire, or not batch fire, it has batched injection. So it fires injectors, two injectors at the same time, which isn't as good as sequential injection. So I've swapped that over. I'll show you that. I had to run all the signal wires down. I basically made an independent injection loom for it. It's very easy to do. You've just got to know where to start. And you run one single wire into each injection port straight into the back of the ECU. Simple as that. And that is going around the patch harness that I got from Tweaked. Anyway, let's have a look inside the engine bay. So here we go. We'll have a look in here. Now have a look how much room is left in front of the engine here. I moved my radiator a little bit closer to the front of the engine bay. I did this for the V8 because I had two big turbos sitting right here. But it's quite easy to do. So I cut away a bit of this and it gives you a lot more room in the engine bay, if you can see that. So it bought me probably about 50 mil or so there. But now when I put the 2jz in, look at the massive hole that does absolutely nothing. It looks pretty cool. It looks basically like a race car. I have wired in electric fans, twin electric fans, just onto a Koyo aluminium radiator here. So here's the engine. I'm running the stock twin turbos on this. So I've made these turbos run in parallel. Now on the normal 2jz GTE setup, you've got them running in sequential mode so that all the exhaust gases get routed into the first turbo, the forward turbo first, and then a valve will open and that will rush all of it to the rear, not all of it, it will spread it to the rear turbo as well. But you get a little hole in the middle, a boost hole if you like. A lot of people say yes, it does spool up the first turbo soon, but trust me, this one doesn't have any lag. It definitely comes on boost really strong and really quick. I prefer it like this. Also, the 1jz wiring loom doesn't have the plugs in order to run this in sequential twin turbo. Also, you get to take that really restrictive big butterfly valve out of underneath of the turbos, and then you can run a big downpipe here. You do have to run a 2-inch restrictor down the bottom so that it doesn't overboost these turbos. I'm running this one currently very safely on 17.5 psi with an eBoost 2 Turbo Smart Boost controller, and it works very well. You can see the turbo piping, so intake piping. All I've done is got a 3-inch aluminium pipe, and yes, I do aluminium welding, so that might be a little bit hard for some folks, but you can easily get it made up. You could probably use the stock 1jz stuff. I have a huge big intercooler in this as well, because this was running the twin turbo V8, so everything was done for that big 1000 horsepower plus V8. This is a 100mm thick intercooler there. You can see how thick that is. 3-inch piping down to 2.5 up to the top though. Round here, you can see it just comes through here, through the other side, up through there, and I just dug a hole straight into the side. There is a stock hole over here on the Soarer, but I just put a hole straight through there and up and into the twin turbos. It works very well. It comes on boost really strong. You can see this is a non-VVTi 2jz. The VVTi ones, you're going to have a little bit more complications with wiring. It's still definitely doable though. These are just a little bit easier to work with, specifically with the 1jz loom. And you can see the traction control as well. That's down here on the front of the throttle body. You simply just don't plug it in. Just leave it unplugged. You really don't need it, especially in a type of race car like this. You can also see my little power steering reservoir here. I've just customized this thing that's out of the V8, and I've just run hoses. I welded on another hose to the back and ran it straight down to this side. I'm also not running any air conditioning on this, so the aircon is gone completely from down there, big hole where it was, and I simply just got a piece of string, ran it around the pulleys, got the measurement, and went and got a belt straight from an auto shop. Just Repco over here, and it works very well. Little reservoir here, just bolt that straight into the side, nice cheap little one, and a cable going straight up to the top. Easy peasy. Standard blow off valve is on here as well, and I'm just making up a lobster tail intake for this one. I'll make a video about that. I'm just doing it all like this. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll finish this off. Come on, focus. There we go. I'll finish this one off with a video, so I'll show you how that comes out. You can see I've got a manual in this car. This is a T56 Tremec gearbox, and this is the master cylinder. So for the master cylinder, you have to make your own master cylinder out of two, basically. The reservoir off the top, this is out of a Soarer or a Supra, but that is attached to a Land Cruiser master cylinder itself. So you pull the reservoir off the top of the Land Cruiser one. You just buy a Land Cruiser one. I think I got it for $50 from the wreckers, and then I swapped over the reservoir tank at the top, and then you simply put the piston straight through. So underneath here you just put a stock clutch in out of a Soarer or a Supra. Both will fit. These cars are so interchangeable, it's not funny. They're basically the same car that look different. The Soarer has a longer wheelbase. So that is the standard clutch pedal. You just fit that straight in, it bolts straight up. Easy peasy. The shifter up here, I used a remote shift. I did have a different type of T56 in here that wasn't the remote shift. That actually came up right through the middle, but this one here, I just placed it in the right place. You can see I just made an aluminium remote shift bracket there, and that goes straight into the gearbox. So the Soarer dash This is a changed dash. So if I hop in here, a lot of things wouldn't work with the V8 dash, and the V8 dash started to go blinky on me. So I got a 2jzgte dash. It doesn't have some of the features of the V8 dash. The scroll button doesn't work, that sort of thing. But it enables all the basics to work. So the rev counter works. Remember, the V8's got 8 cylinders, so the dash wasn't compatible with the 8 cylinders. It had to be for the 6-cylinder. So this is quite simply a 2jzgte Soarer digital dash. That got the rev counter to work, but that also meant that the fuel gauge wouldn't work. So I had to change the fuel gauge sender as well in the boot. I'll show you that. That's another little wiring trick. So let's start it up. I think it's pretty low on gas, but so straight off the bat, we've got no warnings coming up at all. Now that's the best thing. You've got the ABS light on. That's nothing. I just need to plug that in. So this one's out of an arrestor. There's a little differences with the arrestor, but basically nothing that's massively different. You can see I made up a little bracket here for the throttle cable to come through. And then it was pretty simple. Everything is quite easy. This has a massive exhaust. I've got a 3.5-inch exhaust running to twin 3 inches, and in fact I made the back half of the exhaust out of aluminium, believe it or not. It's very lightweight. They put it for titanium, they put the weld titanium. It works very well. Okay, so this is what's going on in the boot. We've got a massive surge tank here. With twin big pumps, and then straight through into a speed flow fuel filter, and then into a dash 10 braided Teflon line, which runs all the way through to the front, and there's a return hose exactly the same as well. That is to run E85. Again, that was for the V8. I could always use it in the future for the 2jzgte. I've got the battery relocated in the boot as well, just thrown right there. There is wiring to be done in here. So if you can see the blue thing right here, the blue top, this is where the fuel sender is for the petrol gauge. Now, because I changed out the V8 dash and I put in a 2jzgte 6-cylinder dash into this, the fuel sender was not compatible. I'll show you the other type of sender. This is the V8 sender. Well, actually any late model one. 2jzgtes did have this type of sender as well with the 3 prongs. They're a much more accurate sender, and they give you a better readout on the dash. They actually show you how many litres is in the car, etc. They also have a bigger connector plug. They have this plug on them right here. I think there's 5 wires going to that plug, if that will focus. Now when you swap over to this one, you just get the blue top sender, and this will make the fuel gauge work on the dash, but the wiring is different. There's only 3 wires coming out of the top of the blue one here. Now I wish I could tell you exactly which wire colors fit what, but all the wire colors are the same. The 2 that I can show you to leave is these ones just here. So you leave out, I think it's a yellow and a black. All of them are basically black and yellow, or yellow and with a black stripe, etc. But you take 3 of them, just fiddle around with them, and put 3 wires into the sender itself. I haven't wrapped these up just so I can show you, and then basically just plug them around different ways until the gauge works, and voila. It is a float type gauge. I have basic coilover suspension in the car, some Varstoin wheels, Supra big brake kit on it, and these brakes work very good on the Soarer. The Soarer weighs about the same as the Supra. It's just 1500 kg car. Because I've lost the aircon and all the crap underneath the dash, It weighs pretty much exactly the same as the Supra. The chassis is not quite as firm though. This is a Auto Couture body kit on this one, which I just liked the look of that one, so I got it and fit it all on. I painted the car myself as well. It's not the best paint job in the world, but it does the trick. Let's get underneath the car and we'll see what's what down there. Okay, here we are underneath the car. You can see the 6-speed transmission here. Now the wiring I've left just all not wrapped up at the moment. So basically this is an automatic 2jzgte wiring loom or engine harness. And this is all of it coming down here. This here is the plug that went to the main shifter, the automatic shifter in the 2jzgte. In order to get the car running, when you swap over to a manual gearbox without using the auto, you need to cut 2 wires to cut off the automatic start switch. So the 2 wires that you need to mainly do are the 2 top wires. If I can focus in on that, they're the 2 middle top wires. One is a solid black and the other one is black with a white stripe. You simply just join those 2 together, cut those and join those 2 together, and your car will start. Then there is 2 other wires that you need to connect off that same loom. One is a yellow wire, the other one is a red wire. You run them out of that same switch there. You can see I've cut that yellow one there and I've cut the other red over there, and you run those straight up to this on the Tremor. I hope this isn't too light. I'll get rid of this light somewhere. Now I haven't wrapped these up, but this is the reverse lights. So you can plug those in any order. The red and the yellow wire out of the big shifter goes straight up, and you run the reverse lights off that. Now for the Speedo, it's a different story. Sometimes it has a speed sensor just up here, but this one has nothing. And a lot of the remote shift ones don't have any speed sensor on the gearbox. So to make the Speedo work, with the help of a guy called Wilbo666 on the internet, he drew up a cog that goes on the back of your tail shaft. Here it is right here. This bit right here, and I have bolted that, simply bolted that onto the back of my drive shaft flange, rubber flange. Then you just wire it up. The purple and the pink wire go straight to it. I have used the sensor, the speed sensor, straight off the automatic A340 gearbox that came with the Soarer. It's just a 2-wire sensor, and I've mounted that on the rear subframe. And this cog has 12 notches, and they simply just turns, and it sends a pulse into the speed sensor each time it gets onto one of the little notches. So 12 pulses, and then you run these wires straight back up into the cabin and into a decoder digital speed sensor. So let's go have a look at that. So back inside the car, the purple and the pink wire, I've just wired them into green and the black as they ran out, and simply they run straight into this little box, the decoder digital, what's it called, CGI5E little box. I've got the same one in my Supra, and basically the 2 wires that came straight from the, well, let's go through the wires straight away. So this one here, the first one to power, is simply power straight from your powered ignition on. Then the next one, the black wire, this is a ground, straight to car ground, body ground, easy. Next one, the green one, is one of the wires straight from the back, from the speed sensor, and then the black one is as well. Now I think you can put those in any order. I didn't have any trouble. I just plugged those straight into the back of this, and then you've got one other wire that you run into out 5, and this wire is your speedo wire. So that runs into the little plug that is underneath the car as well. It is always on these cars, on a Supra and a Soarer, it is blue with a red stripe. I'll show you that actually right now, where that comes from. Okay, there we go. I've just plugged that back in, but I've just left all this sort of undone so I can show you guys how to do it. But that's it, straight to the third wire, the blue with red stripe wire, that is straight to the dash, so that's speedo to the dash. Done. The gearbox here, I've made up a custom mount here. This is solid mounted, it's simple, just a couple of pieces of angle iron to mount the T56 box onto the car through the standard holes and standard bolts. Make the exhaust run around that, and then up here, this is the adapter plate. So this adapter plate, you can see it in between the bell housing and the gearbox. It's 20mm thick. I hope we're getting that with the light. Here we go. This bell housing is an A340 bell housing straight off the turbo Arista box. So it's a J2 bell housing, I believe. There's a J1 and a J2 bell housing off the auto boxes. The J1 is 20mm shorter than the J2. This is the longer one, so I needed to use a spacer for the spigot bearing, and then the concentric slave cylinder also needed a little 5mm spacer behind as well, but all in all it was very easy to do. So this adapter plate here is made of mild steel, and it's simply a design that's been around for a long time. It can be used for the V8 1UZFE and for 2jzs to fit any auto bell housing to a T56 or a TR6060 Tremec box, or even a Magnum box. They're all exactly the same. So anyway, I hope this helps a lot of people out. I'll try and make more of these videos. I'll make a couple more in the next week, but please subscribe so I can keep making these. And the next one that I'll be doing will probably be the intake here, and then I'm going to make up a new single turbo manifold for the Supra. I'll probably do that hopefully by the end of the week, so it probably won't be posted for about another 2 weeks. But I'll be doing that so that I can take it to the dyno, and we'll get it dynoed, and we'll see if we can get at least 550 horsepower to 600 horsepower out of that 2J just on the stock internals. It should handle it nice and fine, and we'll have a pretty good car in our hands, apart from those hideous wheels I've got on the Supra. But we'll see you all soon. Please subscribe. Bye now.